making those choices that are valid. Because if you want to live unapologetically, you've got to be okay with what your bottom line is. And people are making those plans based upon a bottom line. They're making it upon a dream, and if you go back and if you can still have the dream, it isn't like you can't have it, but you have to know what your bottom line is and what you're working from.
Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You, the podcast for the future of wealth management. Thanks for being here. I'm Marla Sofer. Money is a tool. It empowers people. Let's dive into how technology is personalizing advice, strengthening connections, and creating lasting impact. If you're an advisor looking to differentiate, a fintech leader shaping the next wave, or a client ready to take control of your financial future, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, and today we are joined by Dr. Pat Boulogne, an integrative health and mindset expert, executive coach, and best-selling author who helps high-achieving professionals reclaim their energy, optimize their performance, and align their health with their mission. As the founder of Health Team Network, Dr. Pat brings decades of experience in functional medicine, chiropractic care, and personalized health strategies. She's passionate about helping people recognize the red flags in their well-being that are quietly sabotaging their potential, from stress and sleep issues to mindset and nutrition. She also has the gift for helping financial professionals and executives uncover the root causes behind decision fatigue, burnout, and plateaued success. Welcome, Pat, to the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. I'm excited that you're joining us.
Me too. I'm really glad that you're here. It's a personal topic that interests me dearly. And also, I've seen, strands of people struggle with some decision making regarding their health, their wealth, their finances. And I said, this is a really great platform to be able to express that.
Fantastic. Generally, we begin the podcast with the same question every time. What is the most exciting thing for you at this moment that we're in right now about the future of wealth management, the relationship between humans and their capital?
Well, I always think, like when there's so many things going on, you have stuff with Bitcoin and you have emerging platforms with that going on, which always fascinates me. Like, how did you learn about that? And what I'm still trying to learn about what I originally thought was wealth management to begin with. And there's so many corporations and there's so many structural things going on socially and politically that, there's a lot of bombardment from a lot of different which ways that just when you're starting, to me, it feels like you're getting forward, 2 steps forward here, you're being, laterally pulled over to the right, and someone says like, hey, come on over here and look at this. And so it's like learning how to hold them, when to walk forward, when it makes sense to walk forward, and also when to walk back, because it's okay to pull back. And I've had times with myself, with financial advisors that, oh, that's not the thing to do. And if I would have followed my gut instinct in a couple of those moments, I would be sitting a lot prettier. For sure.
That's so interesting. So you talk a lot, and a lot of your brand is around health and performance. And you've built a very strong and engaged community. You've got a ton of followers on LinkedIn. Can you share a little bit about your journey, what you do today, and your particular approach to health and performance?
Well, one of the blessings that I had is being in the right place at the right time in my earlier days. And what always interests me is I've always played sports. So sports was an easy thing for me to follow as a chiropractor. And then there's, someone's like, have you ever thought about treating on an international team? I was like, no. And you should, because you would be really good at it. And, you're well traveled. And so then started, creating those accolades and then working professionally, which was a stepping stone with, I worked a lot with the Boston Marathon in the medical tent. And I got to see people, the camera view from what the camera guy sees when someone's running across the finish line, not what you see on the sideline, or you see like when like Kenyan runners running, because when you got a team that was working so tightly as they do, you got to wonder, like, how do they do that? How are they so concentrated in their mind, their thought, their actions, and their deeds to be able to manage that time again and being so consistent, and it comes down to, what they they do for their health, like what they eat, what they think, how they exercise, how they see the world. And it's just like, because where your mind, and there's a Chinese proverb that says, where your mind goes, your body follows. And it's not just in your health. If you think you're going to struggle, then you'll struggle. If you think you're going to win, you're going to win. It might take you a little bit to win, or you might just like leap over and going, oh my God, and think it was this easy. But there's that piece about the mindset, about thinking before, like seeing the end in your mind before you get there. I had a friend of mine used to host the Canyon Runners. And so the Falmouth Road Race on Cape Cod's usually is in July. And I said, what do they eat? It was the first thing I asked. I was like, not that they're nice or whatever. What do they eat? I want to know what they eat, because they, I've seen an American runner who looked like he was going to win one year when I was in watching the camera with the camera people. And all of a sudden his shoulder went up. And I went, he's going to lose. And the guy said, what do you mean? I said, did you see his shoulder just go up? Play that back. So he played it back on another camera, and he's going, wow, I missed that. And I think that when we don't pay or expect something as like, oh, there you go, you're just perfectly fine, and then you look at your blood work 3 months later and it's totally a mess. It's just like, what happened? And you have to take a look at, step back, like, okay, so where's my foundation? Because so many people miss the back to basics, whether it's in, and also back to basic definitely appeals like in the wealth management, because you got to know what your bottom line is. Mm-hmm. You can't invest something that you don't have.
You want to know what you're aiming for.
And
you
can't
want to know
invest.
What you understand, like, what is it all for? What is this money even going to help me achieve? It goes back to that mindset of seeing the end before you get there. And that's such a huge component of wealth management that's missing. And it goes back to what we were saying as we were prepping, in that our industry is very good at selling products. It is not that good at helping people really answer that question. How do I help you see the end before you get there and help you get there?
Right. Because one of the questions that I've always been asked was like, how much money you think you're going to need, when you're 80? I mean, how do I know that?
Exactly.
It's just like, I don't know what that cushion is going to be. We've seen a definite, cost of living increase of 25% easy in the last 4 years. Nobody foresaw that. So if all of a sudden, if you're basing it upon your 6 or 8% every year, then, it's just like you're in the weeds, and you might go like, maybe I don't need this large house anymore. And I don't need a second house. And did you need a second house to begin with? There's always hotels, and doing like, did I need another Mercedes, or something like that? I came to the conclusion, I let my dog pick my car, and and he did a much better job than I did. And so making those choices that are valid, because if you want to live unapologetically, you've got to be okay with what your bottom line is. And people aren't making those plans based upon a bottom line. They're making it upon a dream, and if you go back and if you can still have the dream, it isn't like can't have it, but you have to know what your bottom line is and what you're working from.
Coming back to that foundation and what you were saying earlier about what got you into it, and you kind of watched what was happening in marathons and how performance was actually, the outcome of performance is based on mindset and nutrition. And I wonder if you can just talk a little bit more about what were some of the learnings? What did you learn about, what are some tips and tricks that you feel like people get wrong? And if they would only do X, then they would get it right.
Well, I teach 5 pillars of health, and I taught the 5 pillars of health based upon a lot of things that I saw, because I didn't only just work, the Boston Marathon. I worked at the LPGA event when it was in Massachusetts, and windsurfing. That was a fun event. And women's and men's pro volleyball. Something that every one of those people had in common, every one of them, is they already saw how they already played the game. Like when you play golf, I used to play a lot of golf. Some people used to ask me, are you a scratch golfer? You're so good. I never counted. I just played because I love to play the sport. But what people do is like, you got to see the end result. You have to know, where do you want your ball to go? And if you want your ball to go and you keep on raising your shoulders, you're going to slice it to the right. Or if you're not paying attention to keeping your head down, because you're always going to golf with somebody else, they can watch the ball where it goes. But every one of those people, when you're an elite athlete, or if you're in elite status, even as executive, you better think well, and you better also eat well. And people used to ask me in my office, I bought an office that was underserved. And I mean, underserved, like the guy who we bought it from saw 20 patient visits a week or 30. And when I bought my husband out when I was divorced, it's just like we were seeing 183 to 225 a week, and it was, and the reason why that's important is because if you don't fuel yourself right, you can't think well, you don't move well, and you don't feel well. And so the five pillars themselves are diet, nutrition, which for me is one, exercise, having proper movement, and know that if you don't move, you're going to die. And the third one is sleep. You got to have sleep. You've got to take a nap, take time to digest your food better, and also, which you go back to one. And then the third one is positive mindset and positive mental attitude, because you can wake up in the morning and if you say, this is going to be a crappy day, I'll put money on it, you're going to have a crappy day. But if you go, I'm going to start my day with a positive note, I'm going to see if I can do something nice for somebody else. Then you have that nice, lovely feeling. Then you carry it through, your whole schedule for the whole day, no matter how many patients you see. And then the last one is having a properly functioning nervous system. You have to have the biomechanics to support yourself. I've been doing a lot of work with posture, and see people are so much at their desk, and they have the head tilt. And when they stand up, they really can't stand up straight anymore. And so you're feeling like, where are you stuck? And your body keeps on creating a new normal and a new normal. And I saw a woman when I was visiting my brother in South Carolina, and this woman literally was walking with her head parallel to the floor, looking at the floor. And I'm going, oh, wow. And every couple steps she had to pick up and like this. And I just told my brother, I said, if you ever look like that, or if I ever look like that, you're allowed, let's do it. Because, in order to have structure and be able to move forward, you have to have that level of stability. And you can't make decisions if you can't walk. The nervous system's got to be functioning. It coordinates everything in the body. And if you can get it to function so it's well, if you feed it well, and don't eat toxic foods, and look at how you're handling toxins in your environment and get what you can get out of your environment, then you can sleep better, and if you sleep better and eat better, then you feel better. And I said that again, I'll say that probably 1,000 times more in the next 2 weeks, that I say that to almost every patient that I'm seeing right now.
What if financial planning wasn't just about numbers, but about you, your values, your goals, your vision for the future? Nomi is transforming client discovery for wealth managers, going beyond assets and risk scores to uncover what truly matters. With behavioral insights and real-time data, Nomi helps advisors personalize advice, build deeper connections, and grow their businesses. Because the best financial decisions start with knowing you. Discover the future of client engagement at nomi.com. Like people who are listening, I don't know if you're watching on video, we're probably not going to put this one up, but whenever you hear the word posture, does it just I'm sure you've noticed, like when you said it, I kind of set up recognizing, yes, I am guilty. I'm absolutely guilty of kind of the poor posture, the crouching over the computer. I wonder if you don't mind sharing, you have a term called Grim Reaper syndrome. Can you explain what is that? And how do you think it's relevant to advisors and execs? And you just talked about the importance of the nervous system. In wealth management, we manage nerves all day. That is what wealth is all about. We help people with their nervous. It is the nervous system that we are kind of selling into as it relates to that relationship with money.
Well, part of it is that people think that because they age and they're a certain age that they, like, oh, that's common. Or somebody will, call their mother up, and not for a recipe. They're like, recently I've been feeling so bloated, or they'll just, whatever the symptom is. And the person on the other end, whether it's your mother or your friend, will say, oh, don't worry about it. It goes away. Or I had that too when I was your age. Or, when you're at a doctor's office and you're getting older, I had a concussion when I was like 59 or something like that. And I was 3 months into not being in the group that didn't have to have a CAT scan, and I said, would your diagnosis be different? And he said, no. And I said, then great, we won't do one. And if my headache continues, I'll be back. And so looking at those pieces of the puzzle and what's relevant in order to move forward, and picking the ones that matter in order to move forward. Does that make sense?
It does. How do you help your patients understand what matters most? How do you help them prioritize?
I tell them. It's interesting because people come to doctors for a lot of different reasons, and they don't come to doctors to have a talk about, well, they kind of do sometimes. They want to know what the doctor's really like as a human being. So they'll ask you, like, do you have a dog? and, or something like that. And the bedside manner comes out too. But I tell them because people don't know. And so the office I'm consulting in right now, the doctor has this specific technique. And I noticed that, like, I go, gee, Louise, I said, a lot of your patients, are in the older group, which is to me a little odd. And then that there aren't a lot of like little kids and that middle group in there. And then a lot of them can't lift their heads off the table. I said, how are you supposed to see where in the heck you're going if you can't pick your head up and look at the wall in front of you when they're laying down? I devised a posture technique where people have immediate response in order to be able to move their head. Because when you can't pick your head up, you keep on putting your head forward. Hence the lady who was parallel to the floor. But when people ask me, I tell them. I learned a long time ago, from my grandmother, who I said, what's the one thing you can tell me? And she said, well, first off, don't stay in the sun, because if you do, you'll have wrinkles. So she was very cute about it. And the second thing is that whatever is on your mind, say it, and it's just like, if you're honest about it and with the intention of, not like cutting someone's knees off or throwing them under the bus, then when somebody asks you a question, you owe it to them. I do ethically owe it to them to give them a straight answer. And I think that I would like the same information when it comes to my money. It's just like, just tell me the way that it is and don't skirt the risk to something that, I later on I'm going to regret doing this, that kind of thing.
What do you have that are some practical strategies that you offer to professionals to maintain peak performance as they age? You also mentioned staying away from toxic foods. Like, do you have kind of a good list, or how do you help people define eat well?
About 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I went totally organic, and that my grocery bill went up about $1,000, $1,200 for the year. And I had a dog at the time. My dog ate organic also, and someone says, "You're spending a lot of money." My dog's grocery bill was about $300 less than my grocery bill in a year. But I said, I'd rather have him have a great life now than pay the piper later. And, it's just like, and that vim and vigor that he had, he lived 5 years past his prime. I did with him what I did with patients or clients, where I'm talking to them about like eating clean, don't eat anything that is not, you don't understand and that you can't pronounce the words. And then the less ingredients in something, it's by far much more better for you. And I don't know if I told you the story when I was in Safeway on Kent Narrows in Maryland during COVID. Did I tell you the story about the broccoli? This is interesting. People either laugh at it or they don't, but I had broccoli, organic, and I had traditional broccoli. And I was just thinking to myself when I looked at it, because they were next to each other, I wonder if they're cross-polluting, and because they're next to each other. And then I was picking them up and I'm looking at them, and this woman goes, "You look very pensive about your broccoli this morning." And it was like a Sunday. And I just said, well, I was just wondering about these. I said, organic broccoli is like having like the ultimate husband, having the ultimate date. The guy who cares about whether or not you eat or not, whether or not you're warm enough or not, opening the door for you, and making sure that you're well taken care of. And she said, and the other, and I said, it's like the bad date, the guy who likes to go out and party, the bad boy, and it's fun. You go dancing and you come home, he gets to sleep in and you got to go to work at 8:00. And she said, which one's the organic one? And I said, the one in my right hand. She grabbed it and she goes, "Get your own," winked at me. I just thought, it's like that about a lot of things. Sometimes things look the same, they're like nice wrappers, but when you take the wrappers off, what do you really have? And if you want to have more substance, if you want to live unapologetically, you got to get those 5 pillars down to a science.
Do you have another practical besides diet? Like something that's really actionable that someone can do right now? Are you big into meditation, or you said movement, thinking, mindset, nervous system? What can somebody do about their nervous system health, for instance?
They can eat well. I know I keep on saying that. And also, hydrate. You need water for every organ system in your body, for sleeping, for detoxing your brain when you're sleeping at night. You need to be hydrated. So a lot of people don't get that hydration. And just a pro tip for for that, drink water out of a bottle that's clean, no plastic, and where you're sipping it, because you'll be able to drink a lot more. The other thing is like you can do what I do in the morning for my morning walk, is I walk with intention. And my walking with intention first starts with movement. So I open my shoulders, I do deep breaths and come in. And then I do a pulse thing that I learned from Tony Robbins, and, where you're breathing in and you're pinching your fingers on going in, your in breath, and then on the way going out. What it does is it makes you pay attention to your body. And the interesting thing in Chinese medicine, these are all Jingwell points, which stimulate those organ systems to function even better. So like the lung, the large intestine, your circulation, the sac around the heart, the pericardium, and the heart and the small intestine. Small intestine is where all the magic happens when you're eating food. You want to take care of it.
For those who didn't see, because I'm watching Dr. Pat in the camera, it's basically like pushing together your thumb and each finger, kind of going up the fingers and then back down.
Like
right?
Breathing in, like, and breathing out your mouth. And I don't count like I'm going to do 100 of them. I just pick a tree going down the street that is in far enough for the way for me to do it. It's hard to do. It sounds easy, but it's hard to do after you get past the fifth one. All of a sudden you're thinking, wait a minute, what finger am I on? And then, on that walk also, I think about three things that these are important action steps for anyone who's in business, anybody who has a life, whether they're a mother, if they're a leader, an influencer, is think about the three things that you need to do for yourself. And then think about three things that you have to do for your business, whatever that is. And then do three things that you need to do for your family, and then make doing those. You can also make that into a rule for yourself, 9 before 9, like pick those three things and have them done before 9 o'clock in the morning, or really map them out so you know that how they're scheduled and you can make sure they're implemented in. A friend of mine who was a vice president of an insurance company on Cape Cod, she said she was a single mother, and she said like clockwork, she would look at the clock at 2:30 and think about, I have to make dinner tonight. Even if she had another meeting to go to or something else to do, I have to make dinner. I've got to get nutritious food into my kids. I've got to get them home from school. I've got to get them in a safe place. And I have to go into a meeting right now. And then I'm leaving here. And then she said she sorted out and decided where she was going to go buy food for dinner on the way going home if she didn't already have it at her house. And she said, like clockwork, she does it. She goes, even, she's been retired for like 15 years now. She said, I still look at the clock at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I have that, that thought. I'm like, wonder what they're doing, because mothers never stop being mothers, no matter if you're an executive, or no matter what, and when I asked men that question, because I was curious, they just said when they finish work, they stop at the store. But it's just like, it's just in our DNA, not to do like, to really try to organize that.
Yeah. And to plan ahead. What is one instance in your life or a conversation that you've had that has changed your own personal relationship with money?
Well, I lost it. Some of it. I had an investment that, went south. There was no reason for it going south. All the markers were there, and it was an investment in a microbrewery that went off gangbusters, and that there was internal mismanagement, which, I believe there wasn't enough due diligence done before the investment really came to the table. That was like so shocking to me. I'm thinking I could have run the microbrewery. It was a learning loss, because it made me pay a lot more attention to some more fine print, and not trust the cover.
Back to the broccoli analogy.
See, you got it coming up again.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, Pat, thank you so much. This has been great. And this is really helpful tips, very practical ideas about how you can live and achieve peak performance, focusing on your health, focusing on a healthy relationship between all of the dimensions of life, your health, your wealth, your relationships. And I'm very grateful for you sharing some of your wisdom and your ability to connect wellness, performance, and money, expanding the conversation around what it means to thrive. Where can our listeners learn more about you and your work and follow you on LinkedIn, where you do put a lot of content out there all the time?
Well, LinkedIn is my primary site. I love putting content out. I like helping people elevate their lives. I'm also I have my website, which is a little bit under construction right now and has some things that are changing on it. And that's healthteamnetwork.com. Then there's Facebook and Instagram is where my next focus is, and curating some other, pieces. I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I really enjoy getting on stage and having a conversation. What my goal always is, like, if you take one thing away that I say, it can change your whole life. And when you elevate that one piece, then other things will come automatically to you. Like, oh, I didn't notice that before. So then that's why I always say, do good, have fun, and thrive.
Oh, I love it. And for our listeners, as you are reflecting on this great conversation with Dr. Pat, what is the next best financial decision that begins with your health? How are you investing in your energy, your sleep, and your mindset? Let us know in the comments, like and share this podcast. And thank you so much, Dr. Pat, for being with us today.
You're welcome. It's my absolute pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more transformative conversations to you. Until next time, keep discovering, keep growing, and remember, you're in control of your own financial story. Follow us for more conversations on financial confidence, self-discovery, and the future of money.